So transgender sports in America, where do things stand? How did it get started? And what can you do about it? Join us on Alabama Unfiltered today with our special guest, Sissy Boone. Don't miss it.
Welcome into this week's edition of Alabama Unfiltered. I am one of your hosts, Scott Beeson. Allison Sinclair, the pirate, is beside me. Amy Beth Shaver is also here. And our guest this week is going to be Sissy Boone. But before we start, please make sure you go to all the different places. Remember, you can see this podcast or hear this podcast at the Apple location, Spotify, YouTube, any of those. And remember that we are powered by 1819 News. Go to 1819news.com, sign up for the daily newsletter. You will be glad that you did. It'll keep you informed on what's going on in the state of Alabama. Ladies, I feel outnumbered. How are y'all?
You are outnumbered.
Ooh. Yes.
Well, you're always outnumbered.
I know, but I'm extra outnumbered today. We have guests. Sissy is with us, and she appears to be a woman.
But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to decide.
Yeah.
And I did notice. Can you say that? Can I say that I noticed? Good.
What if she's not? How do you know anymore?
I'm going by appearances completely, and a gut feeling I have. It's kind of a radar.
What is a woman last night? So I know the formal definition. Do y'all know what the formal definition, like
Please do.
Dictionary? No, just take a guess. Do you know what the dictionary definition of a woman?
Actually, I've literally never
Isn't
looked
it
that
weird?
up.
Because you've never thought about it.
What is it?
Because you never had to be told.
It is
really.
an adult female human, which is interesting because they always say sex and gender is separate. But if you go on that, you cannot be a woman by Webster's dictionary if you are not a female. So they really are way more intertwined than they want us to think.
Just give the Webster's people a few days.
It's coming.
Thanks, Allison. Now they're going to change it.
It's coming.
Because of you saying that on this program, they'll probably change the definition.
They'll probably take this off YouTube, for sure.
Let's see how long we go.
Our record is an hour. Yanked after an hour. It was such a good
Did
day.
it only take an hour?
Yep.
Not Mike Lindell, but the AJ Hurley.
We've had two?
Wow.
We've had two.
It was
Yes.
the one
Good for y'all.
after Mike Lindell. I think AJ Hurley lasted longer than that, but it was something else. Allison, what was it?
We've had three?
No, just two.
Just two.
Just
okay.
two.
But that one lasted less than and maybe it was AJ. It lasted less than an hour. Well done, everyone.
Was it Mo Brooks?
Congratulations.
That's a good one,
Could have
too.
been Mo. I mean, look, our theme song should just be "Here Comes the Boom." You remember that great song? That could be our song by
that's it.
POD. It is, because that's what we're going to
You
talk
know who
about.
sings it. That's pretty amazing.
My kids used to think the lyrics were not what they were. And they're like, why are you listening to that song? It has cuss words in it. I'm like, the big SD, San Diego. And they're like, oh. You know, anyway.
I don't know. I don't even know what that would.
Sorry, I love
The
this song
big
a lot. It's a good running song.
SD.
So you don't know what the
Speaking
bad
of.
word is? I don't either.
I'm not sure.
I'm kind of bothered that I don't know it.
All right, well, the next
That's
time
after
we'll
the
go
show.
ahead
You
and,
I'm surprised that you don't know
after
it.
the
but
show that we don't have yet, but when we do have an after the show show,
Right.
we'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll dive into the lyrics.
play it.
God
Yeah,
just
yeah,
said I'm
absolutely.
surprised. He's surprised it doesn't. I don't know the bad word. Thanks.
You wanted honesty.
Okay, we digress. We do have Sissy Boone on today, which
Thank you for having me.
I'm so fired up. And tell us a little bit about your background, kind of your time at Auburn and how you got involved. And because we're going to talk today about transgender athletes and what's going on in women's sports. So what's your background?
Well, I grew up here, Birmingham, went to Mount Brook High School, and ran track my whole life. I come from a strong track and field family. Went to Auburn and competed. My father ran track at Auburn in the 50s.
Okay.
Mel Rosen, when he first got here, who was very famous. He's a legend in track and field, Olympic head coach during his season. And I followed in his footsteps, ran at Auburn. My brother was on the team with me at the same time. We were both multi-event athletes, decathlon, heptathlon. And my daughter went to Auburn and was also on the track team. And so my brother's son also runs track, Ole Miss. So we have a lot of track and field in our family. And I've coached on and off through the years. I've helped coach Greg Eccles, who was the coach for many years at Mount Brook High School. And so I've coached there, coached at our kids' private school where they've been. I've coached privately as well. So I've stayed involved, and I have a lot of lot of friends and colleagues through that. And so I was injured a lot through my experience and ended up becoming a high jumper from my multi-event experience and just focused on high jumping. And I went to on to become NCAA champion, SEC record holder, All-American, and proud to represent Auburn today. We have a lot of love for the Auburn family and the Auburn program as well. So I love it. It's part of my DNA, being an athlete and everything that goes along with being an athlete. I think it was a great foundation of life, learning, and hope, faith, love, and all the things that we've learned as an athlete. And it just kills me as I'm watching it become dismantled in our culture. It's very hard to see. It's just hard to even listen to it on the news, what's going on.
Well, I think it's important that we have female athletes talking, because my feeling is that no one's really asking the female athletes.
Right.
The questions are all being asked to the transgender athlete, who is usually a man pretending to be a woman, which gives him an intense advantage. I don't care what anybody says, and I think that's backed up. But one of my questions is, why do you think it is that we're not asking the female athletes? My daughter is an athlete. She plays volleyball at Florida. I think everybody who watches this or listens to my radio program realizes that. And no one's asking them really. And then there's a lot of pressure, even if you are a female college athlete. Basically, you just need to be quiet. You don't need to say anything. So it's kind of this push down from outside virtue signaling, and the genuine female athletes are being forgotten. That's the way I see it.
It's true, and it's part of our cancel culture, because if you speak out as an athlete, if you speak out, you're considered homophobic, or all these terms. They label you as anti. I've noticed in the articles I've read, it's just amazing how slanted they all are, and they use these terms like where we're haters, and so we've got them, and it's happening everywhere in our culture. We all know this. Right. I mean, you take any situation that's in the news right now, and we're being canceled. It's the voice of the conservatives, and anything that's not on the edge, anything that is not a part of this progressive, very destructive movement, and is going to be sidelined and marginalized, and even threatened. People are even being threatened. Coaches I know are being threatened with their jobs if they want to say something, and it's just fear. It's just fear and control from these governmental bodies of sports and athletics that are running them, and we're not mobilized really to speak up for what. And I think some people are just dazed. It's like, how is this even happening? And it's such common sense, but it's like, now I feel even stupid for saying something that isn't this common sense? Right. And yet I'm being bold.
Think it'll go away. Well,
surely this is just going to blow over.
Won't come.
It's just getting worse.
Right. It is.
Well, isn't it funny that as Roe v. Wade was sent back to the states last week, that they suddenly figured out in an instant what women were?
This is a good point.
So it kind of destroys the narrative, right?
Right.
But what was the first point when you started noticing, oh my gosh, this is really happening? Was it before Leah Thomas at Penn State?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly where it was. I was at a track meet here as a coach and as an official.
In Alabama?
Here.
Okay.
Right downtown. At our indoor facility down there, and I was helping the kids line up for the 60-meter dash in the junior high division, and a boy came up to the starting line as we're checking them in, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is the girls' race."
Right.
And he said, "Oh yeah, this is me. That's my name." I don't remember his name, of course. Right. And I just was like, that's when it was just right there, and this is happening.
When was that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
It might have been 3, but yeah, it was an indoor meet. I think it was 2 years ago, and the meet stopped. I mean, the meet director. I mean, this was an issue. They stopped the whole meet, and they had to. The meet directors had to get together and figure out what are we going to do?
Right.
What are we going to do?
And what did they do?
They let him run.
Of course they did.
Just
because they were afraid.
They were afraid.
No changes, just a young man, obviously a young man running with the girls.
It was obvious to me.
So he could win.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, at the very young, it was at the younger
I
levels.
was about to say, there's a good chance because I remember the girls in junior high were way faster than us.
Yeah, and there's that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was, maybe it was 3 years ago, but since then, our state has, we are not allowed to do that in the junior high and high school levels, and so it has been. Different states, of course, are passing these laws at that level, but it's a whole different story when you get to college.
Right.
It's last night we watched What is a Woman, the Matt Walsh documentary, which y'all need to watch it because it's actually really funny. It's actually really sad that these are conversations that are necessary to have. But the overarching theme of the documentary is truth. And Amy Beth, I mean, we talk about it a lot. Like, we have got to get back to truth. And there is a reality. There is, there's male and female. And the fact that that is even in question is crazy. And what the best part, if y'all remember our furry conversation way back at the beginning where we talked about the she-wolf,
Yes.
they actually interview that boy, because it is a boy. But they bring up the whole idea of furries, people that think they're animals. And that's where we're going.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening in schools in Shelby County, around the state, where now you ask a child in class a question and they respond with a mule. They're meowing and mewling like cats because they
are.
identify as cats. We have lost all... I mean, it's funny.
Will
I'm not
told
even
me-
kidding.
No,
Like,
he
it's
told
happening.
me at UNC that the kids do that.
Yeah.
That they're like he couldn't even believe it that they'll dress up and go out as furries. And I said,
Yeah.
"Are you talking about like grown adults?" And he was like, "Yes, this is normal."
So my question is, I mean,
take
and this is like what we have to, but it's an issue. These kids and these parents actually allow them to
That's the
identify as
problem.
cats. And
It's
I'm
the
like,
problem is the parents and the governing bodies. I feel sorry for the kids that are being allowed to transition and are so confused and mentally unstable that they want to change their gender. I mean, there's a whole nother issue, but the governing bodies that are allowing them and offering them a pathway in order to do that and saying it is okay and we will bend every rule that has ever been in order to make this happen. That's the problem. And who gives them the right? And you're correct. It all goes back to the deconstructing of absolute truth in our culture and our society. There is no absolute truth. And so when you don't have that, then I would submit that where we're headed is we won't even be allowed to have sports because all sports are discriminatory because there's a winner.
right.
Right.
I mean, I'm telling you, a lot of this started with this whole everybody gets a trophy mentality, and it happened in the Christian schools. It happened in the conservative circles, and everybody at the time thought this is a great idea because God loves everyone, and as believers and as conservatives, Southerners, whatever, that was kind of a genius way for this evil. I'm just going to call it evil to start to seep into this culture and change this mindset of, really everyone's equal.
Right. Instead of what you're gifted by God to do.
That's right, because we're not equal. I mean, we are equal. Obviously, God loves us.
We're equal in value.
That's right, but we're not equal.
Right. It is a bulldozer and a Lamborghini. They cost the same. Their value is the same, but they're not the same.
And they're not
Does that
equal.
make sense?
Yeah.
That's right.
And I mean, if that were the case, we would just be a bunch of the same, robotic. And I have seen this attitude seep into the education system and seep into the church. And I just watching my own kids grow up in schools and seeing just this idea that, well, everyone is a winner. And so we don't want to give out trophies for the best in this particular best in math. And when I was growing up, I mean, you worked for those awards. I mean, I wanted to be the smartest. I wanted to have.
Knew,
Yes.
Amy Beth's better than math, and Allison's better than in English, and you were going to be
And
faster than everybody.
I
And we
get-
all knew that,
I get where
except
that-
for the people who didn't want to say it.
Yeah,
That's right.
And I think it was an effort in the Christian circles to avoid the idolatry of athletics that we do experience here, especially in Alabama.
You can be,
But in order, so they want to pull back from an emphasis on sports, which I can appreciate that because there's more grace in the world than that, and our culture wants everybody to, this whole, you can be anything you want to be.
That is what I brought that up on my show today. We
No,
taught
you can't.
tons of kids.
Yeah.
Baby, you can be anything you
But
want.
you can't.
And you cannot.
You cannot.
Right.
That is one of the biggest lies, in my opinion, perpetrated on these poor kids. That is like, they need boundaries. They don't need to say, that's like giving a little kid, say, you can run, you can go anywhere. They need some guidance. But when you say, well, you can do and be anything, no. The Word of God says, train up a child in the way he should go,
Right.
and he will not depart. Well, that word, the way he should go, actually means how they're bent.
Right. You can be anything
way
that God
that
has gifted
in
you
your-
to be.
That's
Whatever
it.
his plan
That's
for
right.
you
Kinda-
is, you have those
Yeah,
gifts.
and that's our job as parents to kind of help raise them, go this way. And you're really good at that, and we're supposed to guide them. You're not supposed to say another thing. What do you want for dinner? Or you don't like this? Well, you can have whatever you want. So all of that has, this whole transgender thing and redefining sport is really what's happening. And because it's like rules, well,
Right.
all of a sudden rules are the bad guy. And so how do we balance having a rule? If you don't have an absolute truth, then how can you have a rule? I mean, it's a circular
Right.
thinking for those on the other side of this to say, well, you can have rules. And I have a copy of the IOC and their current statement on this whole transgender thing, and it is so full of circular reasoning of fairness and equality, and they keep throwing those words, anti-discrimination and the safety and the health, and yet it's only as long as it fits their narrative.
Right. See, I thought sports was going to kind of be the thing to stop us from the craziness.
level playing field.
Yes, because sports is where everybody understands this guy is faster, this girl is bigger, this person jumps higher. There's nothing I can do about it. Because I ask people sometimes, do you agree that there are people who are smarter than others? And they literally are like,
Yeah.
because they don't want to say that this person's smarter than somebody else. But then you say, well, but can she jump higher than she can? Well, yeah, of course. So I really thought sports would be,
Right.
all right, there's no way to get around it. You can't say, well, the IQ test doesn't matter. I mean, it's clear. This kid is faster. This kid is not.
That is why this is such a dangerous issue.
Because this breaks down,
Everything.
we're really denying what we see with our eyes.
That's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
No,
Makes
it's true. And
perfect
this
sense.
says
Yeah.
this document actually says that. I see. It's like you cannot judge by your eyes. I mean, there's so many things in here. I just was like, what does that even mean? And if I can't even understand that, how confusing must it be for someone who doesn't even know if they're a girl or a boy? I mean,
Right.
and the fact that we even give them the opportunity to choose that. When you're an athlete, you don't get to choose. Like, there are rules. Like, I mean, when I was at the collegiate level, I couldn't even eat a poppy seed muffin before a meet, or I would test positive.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would be disqualified.
Right. And you could say, it was a muffin, it was a muffin, it was a muffin. It does not matter. That is what the rules
Guess
say.
what? You false start the finals of the Olympics, you're out.
Right.
It doesn't, oh, I'm sorry, you get another chance. I mean, but all of a sudden, if you can just say, I'm a girl, I know I was a guy last year, but this year I'm a girl.
Right.
And they let you in. Oh, and by the way, I'm pumping my body full of all of these unnatural hormones, and yet I can't even eat this muffin. Like,
Right.
it's just
Right.
nothing adds up. I mean, we had to do so many drug tests in college, and they still do them. Talk about invasive. I didn't have a choice, and this is all about consensual information and medical examination, privacy this, privacy
Right.
that. You can't look at, you can't, do the whole, as coaches want to say, pull the pants down trick to see if they're
Right,
really,
right.
you can't even ask. You can't. And I'm like, well, we had to go give urine samples in a cup with the door open and someone witnessing.
Right.
us.
So that you didn't have a vial with you.
At the
and all that.
basic
Yes.
level,
But regular people don't understand all that.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean,
regular
it
people
is-
don't know what you go
it is
through normally.
excruciating.
So they're like, oh, that's horrible. And
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
That's not
You're like,
horrible.
it's
These
life.
people have had to do this for years and years and years, but regular folks don't get it.
And they don't get why this issue is so important and why we should be vocal. I mean, we've got to stand up against the cancel culture. because everybody's shutting you all down, and now it's a badge of honor. You're talking about something important if they're shutting you down, and we've got to be talking about this at school boards. We got to be talking about this in Sunday school. We got to be talking about this when we're going out to eat and at work. Like, this has got to stop.
See, I have this theory that we really need an over the top, in your face. I was talking to my youngest son's 15. And I was talking to some of his friends. He's like one of the last of his group to play basketball, all the little kids that played basketball together and all that kind of stuff. I said, well, look, we'll just take all you guys who don't want to play anymore, and we'll just make you the high school girls basketball team. And when we just destroy everybody will pitch a fit, have a cow. And that's unfair. You're playing with all guys, I know, but they feel like they're girls this year. And who's to tell them that they're not? I guess a judge or somebody would come along and say, no, you're not legitimately, you don't really believe it. But there needs to be something like that happens that kind of shakes some people and says, okay, yeah, we got to stop that. And if they knew we were working the system and tricking the system and making a point, maybe they would crack down on us.
Did they agree? Because that would be awesome.
Boys,
yeah, let's do it.
They were like, oh, I don't do that. They were just the embarrassment would be too much for them.
I kind of like it.
You know, it's bold. So there are two things. One, this whole idea of competitive excellence. And you made a very important point, and that is in the church, really in the Christian community, when we decided to take away scores when our kids were all very little, even though I bet y'all's were like mine, they would get off the court and, hey, it was 48-47. We won.
Every parent was over there keeping score. Every parent.
I mean, it didn't matter if it was soccer, basketball. I don't even know what other things they could do when they were little. Football, flag football. They always knew the score. And so the idea that we would ignore that so they could feel better, we realize that we have made an entire generation shoulder the burden of our insecurity and our inability to say, you're a boy and you're a girl and there are rules, and that's what makes sports beautiful.
That's right.
It's unbelievable that we've done that. And so now we're paying the price.
That's right.
We're completely paying the price. And I want to talk about competitive excellence, but a pause, because we came across an article that I think is very interesting, because we're all scratching our heads. And even though it showed up in sports 2 years ago, this whole transgender movement started a long time ago with the circumcision gone wrong. Twin boys, one was okay, one wasn't. They turned that little boy into a girl, but the mother noticed immediately that she didn't want to be a boy. I was reading in the article, and we've posted it in show notes, told her brother she wanted to be a garbage man, and she wanted to do all these manly things, and she wanted to do all the things the boys did.
Right. Until
one day, far into, I guess, her teen years or early 20s, they finally fessed up to what had gone on. And it was her surgery from a boy with a botched circumcision to a girl and back to a boy again was the basis of the transgender movement. And a very sick human being named John Money, who was the pioneer in all kind of crazy, they call it sexual ethics. There's nothing ethical about it. But he was able to say, look at what I did. And it was hailed as the foundation of, look at what we're doing at Johns Hopkins. And it was the baseline for the feminists to say, see, girls and boys are the same.
Right. It's all social
You can
construct.
choose.
And so
kind of thing.
this is where it came from, and it was all a lie. Every word of it was a lie, because previously he had operated on androgynous kids who literally came in, and they were. I mean, it was a big deal, but that was completely separate than this little boy who had a tragic accident, and the doctors at the time said, we don't know what to do.
Right.
But the whole thing is a lie, and that is what makes me want to throw up for our girls that have to compete against boys. My aunt, I was telling you on the phone, by way of getting back to talking about competitive excellence, is that my cousin is an unbelievable swimmer, swam for UNC, went to the Olympic trials. Her best friend in the spring was at the Olympic trials. My aunt texted me and said, you won't believe this, but there is a girl, and she is transitioned to be a boy with the scars in her boy swimsuit now, about to swim against the boys as a girl.
Okay.
Oh.
And you're like, and she was like, this is pathetic.
How'd it go?
Okay, I haven't heard of one going girl to boy.
Yeah, she had scars from the removal, from the mastectomy. I mean,
How'd she do?
so I don't even know because we
need to
both
look
went
at
off. We both derailed because
Well, I know
we couldn't
the
believe.
answer,
Because
because since
then
we don't
she
know,
lost.
she lost.
She lost. And so then it was vice versa, where you see the boys jumping in, swimming with the girls. And so I was more used to that. Thanks, Leah Thomas. What was Leah Thomas's name before?
I forgot.
Mr. I shall refer to him as Mr. Thomas because
Mr.
somebody
Thomas.
should love him enough to say,
Remember.
we need to get you some help.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they deserve
They
our
do.
our pity, because somebody didn't love them enough along the way to say, we need to help you, but not this way.
I think it's important to go back to, and they talk about this in What is a Woman, Dr. Money and what he did to those boys. Both those boys, if I'm not mistaken, ended up dying to suicide.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Both the
suicide rate
twins.
is astronomical in this arena.
That was, I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of a natural end, isn't it, to a very
Right.
tragic situation where you don't just tell the truth and say, what would you like to do?
Right.
But what we're up against truly, and I don't even know, and this is a deeper, maybe even rhetorical question. I don't even know how you're dealing with two very different worldviews. As believers, as Christians, we know that this is a fallen world that will never be equal, that will always be broken. We were never meant to be the same. And in a fallen, broken world, we won't be. So this whole equality, everybody wins, you can change your gender. I mean, it's gobbledygook. I don't think I've ever said that
It's
word
kind of
before.
like,
but
though,
But you're right.
but then you've got these people that think that you can right a very wrong world, and it's a lie. But I don't know how those two actually come together until maybe all the boys go play girls basketball
to prove a point.
to prove. I really, it's a whole clash.
Genius.
But then again, this whole issue about the transgender in sports is a fruit on the tree. It's
Right.
just a piece of fruit. I mean, fundamentally, it's the same lie in the garden where you can be like God.
Right.
Did God say?
That's where, did God really say right, wrong, good, bad? And their eyes were open because they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And they are trying to, it's this culture that's trying to be like God, where they determine everything is self-governing, self-this. It's like, I saw a meme and I reposted it because it said, things you'll never hear Jesus say. Pursue your dreams, follow, do what you want. It's all
Right.
about
Follow
you.
your heart.
Follow your heart, all these things, because what did he say? I mean, it's the exact opposite.
Deny yourself.
Deny yourself.
Follow me.
Your body is not your own. And at the same time, he talking back to your point about sports. I mean, he's run in such a way as to win. Discipline your body. And how many times did he use that? I mean, it is. It's in both. And we're called as the body of Christ to bring the kingdom of God into this earth. And ruling and reigning, we are called to rule and reign, not to just holy huddle until the rapture, whatever
Right,
you
right,
believe that's
right,
going to happen,
right.
but to rule and reign and to occupy these 7 mountains of influence in our culture. And I think in these days, in 2022, God is calling the church up and out of the church to say, occupy the mountains of influence that you have, whether it's education, whether it's politics, whether it's entertainment. Occupy those and take over and begin to infiltrate the culture.
Right.
And that's why we have to push back against this cancel culture, because they have, they're just loud. They got a lot of money. Our government is the worst about it. I mean, this whole progressive administration, they're cramming it down our throats because they want to destroy not only our country, but the family unit itself. I mean, it goes all the way back to this is one of their tools to do that. And we've got, as believers, we've got to open our eyes and see what is happening in our neighborhoods and see the bigger picture. And I mean, I know some people it's easy. Oh, well, this will blow over, or my kids aren't athletes and that's terrible, but what can I really do about it? Right. But it's just one piece of fruit on this tree where our country is caving in. And when we start to do like what we're doing today, maybe it'll give somebody listening the courage to go, I am going to say something next time it comes up. I am going to speak up for truth. Just our one voice, y'all. One voice you never know who that person is, and it takes all of those little voices to push back against an entire culture. But really, we are the majority. I mean, y'all. The way that we are thinking, we still are the majority in this country. But they have led us to believe that we're this tiny, crooked, backward minority that's uneducated.
I think where most
so
of us
important.
feel abandoned is by the church itself.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
the church has not done a great job standing up for this truth. In fact, I see more of them bending to culture than ever before. And it's disheartening. And it's hard to put yourself out there when, the church down the street, the pastor down the street is posting on Facebook the opposite of what, and you're just like one little person.
Yeah.
Or not even.
I don't
or not
know.
even
What do you
saying
do?
anything. I saw
Or not even, or yeah.
how many, I read it. I forgot where I read it, but just about Roe v. Wade, talking about the churches that said nothing.
Nothing.
In Birmingham.
That's right. I
Birmingham.
saw that.
And y'all, this Barna Research has said that Birmingham, Alabama is the most churched city in the world.
Right.
And yet our churches did not mention.
Or a glancing blow or a little short prayer, but nothing.
Where's the celebration? Where's the joy?
Right.
Where's the.
And did you guys notice that even in this area that they would say, "Time to get to work, church"? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
But
People have been working from the
predict that on our
60s.
Yeah,
show.
Back when
did.
Jesse Jackson was pro-life, there have been people, including Alveda King, that have worked since then for life causes. So, where have you been?
Yeah.
How do you not know that?
Right. Well, they don't know that because their church wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And hadn't been doing anything for
But it's the
decades
church.
and
We
decades.
were rescuing children back in Roman times when children were left to exposure, and it's going to be us again to stand up and say, "No, actually, you're a woman, or you're a man, and this is called sports, and we're going to compete." Which is, then let's talk about, because you really have a lot to say about the idea, the concept, the importance of competitive excellence. I mean, why does that even matter?
Well, it matters because God said it matters. He has called us. He wants us to use our gifts and use our talents and run the race. He likens our journeys with him as a race, and he wants us to run with him and do what we do and do it well and win. There's a crown. There are crowns and there are rewards. Scripture talks about rewards in heaven and rewards on the earth, and we don't like that. As I have told many kids, if we've had conversations, I didn't write the Bible. I'm just telling you what it says. He talks about sports, and we can learn. The value of young people in a competitive environment, learning the things like perseverance, patience, teamwork, kindness, and humility when you win. Those invaluable truths. I learned more through losing than I ever did through win. Anybody can win well, but to lose well. And God blessed me with coaches that helped me to see the balance of that and understand. I learned a lot more through athletics than I did from a book in school, in my classes, learning and how do we apply that to our walk. And sadly, a lot of schools, a lot of churches, a lot of Christian schools, they almost have this sense where they apologize for winning.
Yes.
And I experienced this. My daughter experienced this, and she threw her hands up. She's like, "I should apologize for," or they're not celebrating state championships or something because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings that's not an athlete. And I'm like, celebrate the choral team.
That's
we
one of
are
the things
not-
I've never understood in schools
Yeah.
is
I
just
don't either.
celebrate everybody and their gifts
Everybody
instead
and their
of
gifts.
not. Right.
And I
right.
understand the heart behind it, wanting everyone to know who they are, and it's about identity. We've got to teach our kids who they are and their particular identities, but you don't do that at the expense of someone else.
Right.
You don't try to shut down what might be just an outstanding athlete or an outstanding person in theater or whatever, their ACT scores. Everything in our culture has rankings and scores, and it's not all bad. It gives us something to pursue, and I feel like we've watered down in its fear-based. I think there's a fear of winning, a fear in the Christian world of too much success in the spotlight, because we have seen so much go awry, and so many people, whether it's a pastor that is wrong, doing something for the wrong reasons, and it's the glory of the spotlight, or whether it's we idolize athletes so much, and that is so true. And we have to balance that, and but we've got to teach the value of losing and the value of failure. It makes me think of Eric Little and Chariots of Fire, and and his sister. They were missionaries. I'm sure y'all know the story of the Chariots of Fire, and he was an Olympic runner, and she was very troubled by his pursuit of glory, and that it would take him away from his calling in his life. And he tells her, he said, God made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. I mean, that is the bottom line, because he was doing what God gave him to do, and he did it well, and he felt the pleasure of God. And that was his call. And that was, and we've lost some of that. And I think the church, to your point, Allison, it does need to start at the church. Church needs to say, hey, let's stop for a minute and reevaluate where do we need to talk to these kids, not only about gender, but about the value of athletics in and of itself. And that's only this one, again, piece of the fruit. I mean, there's so many other issues and topics, but this one is just, on the table today. But we've lost, I think, some of that. And we need grace, and we need to love everyone, but love cannot trump justice and truth.
Right.
You have to have the truth alongside of it. So I feel like we've just gotten top heavy. I had, talking to some in the younger generations, I've asked, what do y'all think is the church's current response to this transgender issue at all? Like, how do you feel like we should see these people, and they're jumping in with support and love, right, and including them, and I think that's fantastic, because we do need to do that. But there's got to be a line, and that line's gotten kind of fuzzy. There's got to be a line, like with sports. We can love who you are. We want to help you in this painful situation that you're obviously in, but you know what? There's some rules, and you can't play. I mean, how many times did we have that growing up? I wanted to play football. Right. I'm so glad my parents, this wasn't around. I probably would have become a boy if my parents weren't Christians. I wanted to play football. I was so mad when I realized when my dad had to sit me down and tell me, you can't play football because you're a girl. Right. And at the time, I was faster than all the boys. And I'm like, that's stupid. Right. Yeah. But guess what? It was the rules, and you just.
Well, it might have been better for you in the long run too, because eventually. Those guys are big.
Yeah, there's that. So yeah,
they're very big.
But a lot of girls, the tomboy kind of an idea. Lots of girls like to be rough and tumble and want to. So, but you don't give them an option to change. Oh my gosh,
I just want to look at everybody in both sides, I think, and say, are we better off after we've implemented all these, new social norms? Are our kids mentally healthier? Are they physically healthier? Are they emotionally healthier than they were, I'd say probably 7-8 years ago? Surely both sides can say no.
Right.
Like whatever we're doing is not working. That's right. And so for the athletes, and I keep going back to What is a Woman? Y'all need to watch it. We could all have been on the same page. Okay. But one of Leah Thomas's teammates is on there, and of course, like she's blacked out, she's all dark and in the shadows.
She wants to be able to get a job,
and they've changed her voice and all this kind of stuff, and that she talks about there will be retribution if they find out, that I'm speaking. And so, what is it going to take for athletics besides the middle school boys? Well, no, they're in high school, beating everybody, but like what? Yeah. Because it's easy for us to sit on the outside. You're more on the inside. Actually, all of y'all are, because you have kids playing at the collegiate level. But to kind of maybe guess what's happening in those huddles and those circles, but to hear it from the inside,
there's some progress made. What was it?
That's got to get out.
Swimming. What's it called? FINA? I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
And the skateboarding, the skateboarding, that was so weird.
That was very weird. The 13-year-old beaten by a 29-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
The 13-year-old girl loses to the 20-something-year-old male who claims he's a woman. Mm-hmm. But the international swimming folks said men can't swim against the women unless they became a woman before puberty.
12. For the age of 12.
So I mean, they still didn't fix
still
it.
Yeah, and
But
that-
they
it's-
went further than
That's
everybody
almost
else.
worse. Like now they're going to force these kids
Children.
to do this
That's
before
right.
puberty.
It's child abuse.
It is child
It is
abuse.
child-
Absolute
Yes.
child abuse.
I
And
mean,
it's
we would have been all
we're
kinds of crazy
sexualizing these
things.
children too. For them to make that decision and be allowed. I mean, a kid can't even buy cough syrup
Right.
without a driver's license behind the counter, and yet you're going to
Yeah.
give somebody under 12 the
The choice. What
Choice.
was there's
Yeah.
the meme that where somebody says something about I wanted to be a dinosaur.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
Right.
children shouldn't even be thinking about all these things. They're just kind of themselves.
That's right.
And then just now be getting to the point where, oh, there is a difference between boys and girls. I mean, they know there is, but they're just starting to notice that there is.
mean,
And
raise
people are
your
already
hand
changing them.
If you were comfortable in your body as an adolescent and going through puberty. Nobody.
Nobody was. It's terrible.
Nobody. It's awful.
I think I knew I was a boy.
I knew I was a girl.
Yeah, I mean, but
That's
like,
all we knew.
You didn't know anything
Actually,
else.
yeah.
Well, it
But
doesn't
you
look
know
like
what? Let me
it's
just
not all. I
say,
don't
that
look
was
like I
the
want
80s.
to,
That
but
was
still.
old.
All
long
that
time ago.
sexualization
Yes.
stuff all goes back to that John Money character at Johns Hopkins. Truly, he was really responsible for the beginning of the sexual revolution. And so when we're talking about this, we have to go back to that. The article is very long, but it is worth your time to read because it's unbelievable, it's eye-opening, and it's maddening. But like Allison said, what do you think? Like, what can we do to help take this on, both in, interpersonal relationships, but then maybe on a local and a state level?
Well, I think it starts with speaking up and getting connecting yourselves with some organizations that are being formed for this purpose. Family Alliance is one of those organizations. I think I said that right. Save Women's Sports. I had a quote here from Beth Stelzer. She heads Save Women's Sports, and this is hopeful. She said that the transgender movement, it wields enormous influence in the mainstream media and on social media, but she believes the tide is turning thanks to some of these athletes that are speaking out and at great risk
Right.
of their jobs and their future. And one of them is a former Auburn swimmer. And she feels like they're going to see a groundswell of support, but we need a safe space for people to speak up because it's a toxic environment. We have been bullied, and we're finally getting to the point that the bullies can't shut us up anymore because there's more of us.
Right.
And it's these brave athletes, like at Penn State, a couple of these brave swimmers are speaking up, and they're doing it anonymously because they are fearful of their lives,
Right.
y'all. I mean, they have said this. They have said, we're risking our futures. The coaches said, I'm going to lose my job. And yet the NCAA is like, oh, we're all inclusive, and we're allowing, they're so wishy-washy, and they're so powerful, though. They're not even making a call. Well, we're going to let each sport
weak.
decide
Right.
their own, because they said, and I could quote it. I mean, I could read it here. They said because every sport has different physical requirements.
Right.
So basically, what they're saying is, we know that that guys can be more competitive in some sports, and in other sports it's not so. So maybe the
Right.
drugs should be different in some sports.
Right.
So they're just totally pawning it off on these individual governing bodies. And so, what are these individual governing bodies going to do? It's kind of like the states. Well, what are the other states doing?
Right.
You know,
They need somebody to lead so
the
they can
charge.
say,
You
okay,
say, they didn't do it, and so
Right.
it takes courage in those governing bodies so that they can start saying no. And Alabama, I mean, the NCAA has already threatened to pull championship games because we have gender-hating laws. You know,
Right.
of course,
Right.
and y'all, we all know that. And yet at the same time, they're saying, oh, but we're all about fairness and equality and giving each organization the opportunity to make their own decisions.
So-
Well, no, you're not.
So here was one of my
They're really not.
suggestions, and I don't understand it. And they, the journalists are always going to the SEC football coaches, and I would be shocked if you can find an SEC football coach, a head football coach, who thinks any of this makes sense. Now, I'm sure they try to keep their heads down. The male coaches. But what I don't understand is a conference like the SEC. Do y'all think?
Well,
can y'all think of a
I
head
don't want to
coach?
name names, but what I know is the NCAA has a whole lot of money
Yes.
and a whole lot of power.
Right.
And the SEC see head football coaches have a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's connected to the NCAA, and I don't see any of them
But they
stepping
could
up and
stand on their own.
They could.
They absolutely, the Power 5 conferences could easily say, you know what? We're
If
not
the
doing
men
that.
would
Even
stand
if just
up.
the SEC
Yes,
would say,
right.
we don't
Can
need
you
your
imagine?
dollars. We will
I
make
mean, correct me
hundreds
if I'm
of
wrong. Has
millions
Nick
without
Saban
you.
said anything about this? I had thought.
I mean,
No,
he's
he
the
was-
one that
he
I
was
can
marching
see.
for
Until
other
we
stuff.
have a girl show up to try to get on his football team, I volunteer as tribute.
No, I can totally see. I mean, is
Right?
that, and I'm not just
Well, he
saying
would
this 'cause
say,
I'm an
you know what his
Auburn
answer
fan.
would be? That'd be great if she can make it. It'd be great if she survives
Yeah.
it. She's
So
great.
you're
But
back to the
that's-
Which is not
competitive
gonna happen.
excellence.
That's right.
So what
It would
does-
have to be forced
Yep.
on before this. But I just don't understand why more men don't
They're
say
afraid.
this is
Fear.
crazy.
It's fear.
You should stop.
It's
But who are they
fear.
afraid of? Some of these guys don't have anything to be afraid of.
That is a great question. I feel like we've got to stop for a minute. Remember, this all goes back to a spiritual battle. Everything, if we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And I believe that our country will be saved, that God will save this country, and he will do it somehow, and he will get all the glory for it. This year marks, as we know, the 50th year of Roe v. Wade. We are also in, by the Jewish calendar, we are in a Jubilee year, which is every 50 years is a Jubilee year. That's not a coincidence. We are also in the 50th year of the signing and forming of Title IX.
9. Yep.
And that is also what's on the table. And these are things that our God is not neutral about. Title IX is a significant a document in his civil rights. Y'all, I mean, I don't think people really are aware. It actually says, and I'll quote it, the federal law that's prohibiting sex-based discrimination in any educational program that is federally funded either directly or indirectly. That is the basis of Title IX. All of this that we're talking about is hitting directly against it to try to dismantle Title IX. Title IX is not even a generation old. I mean, my mother wouldn't have been able to compete at Auburn, and I'm a product of that because in the 80s, we were the women's sports. We were just getting going, and it gave so many girls the opportunities, and it was a good thing. And also, I mean, y'all remember 9 to 5, the Dolly Parton
Yes.
movie? That's how women used to be treated in the workplace. I mean, Title IX, any sex-based discrimination in any educational program, and then in the workplace, this was a great victory. And how it's all being undermined. So this transgender issue is undermining everything for women. It is so anti-woman.
Right.
And yet they are saying it's not.
Right.
That's maddening to me.
Right.
And
Okay, all right, because I've got all women here. So is there a little
You
bit
think?
of the men? Y'all better be. Is there any part where the men are like, fine, y'all fight that battle?
That's what I was about to say. Like,
Because we're like, we can fight. We're warriors. We don't need y'all. We don't need y'all. We don't need y'all.
well, but you see, that's the lie.
Right.
Because we do. I mean, God made us that way God made men to be men. And
Right.
yes, men need to speak up for
injustice.
the unborn, the weak, the innocent, and these young girls, this is what's, I mean, if I had a daughter now that was in a grade, I'm not so sure I'd want her in sports because she could work her whole life, all of her growing up and all the practices and all of the money and all the traveling and everything. And then poof, a guy decides he's going to be a boy.
Right.
A girl, he was a boy last year, but,
Right.
and it's all gone. And she's lost her
Yeah,
scholarship.
I can't understand how dad
Exactly.
Yeah.
doesn't.
I tell you what,
doesn't
it's fear.
say, let's just open a can here before something
Right.
happens.
I
I
mean,
don't get it
come
because
on.
my daughter has not faced that, but I know that possibility is out there. We're always asking about, hey, when y'all going to play? When are one of these college teams going to come play you, and they're going to bring 2 guys?
That's right, and that's what we need. We need the dads to stick up for
Right.
the girls,
Wow.
to fight for the
Isn't
girls.
that the truth? I mean, really and truly. All right, so people are watching and they're listening and they're considering. Are there things that people can do, like get involved even with their local school system? I mean, are there things that, like in Alabama, we've kind of taken care of it, but there's still going to be pushback.
Right.
We have at the school level, not at the collegiate level.
Okay.
because we carved out the collegiate level in the Alabama law, didn't we? Because we were afraid of
Afraid of the
NCAA.
So that's
which we
one
still
area
should have
where
said.
people can jump in and say, hey, no way. I mean, voices heard around football season. There's going to be opportunity for people to speak up just looking ahead.
Right.
Because you listen to this and you're like, well, I want to do something.
I know.
Well, and I think it comes back to just having this conversation and in social settings. You're at dinner. I mean, I guess maybe we're at the point where sometimes maybe dinner out with friends needs to be a little uncomfortable. Like, speak the truth. Don't negotiate on the truth, because in the end, that's not loving. And the more we speak the truth, courage is contagious. So
Yeah, grassroots.
Yeah,
and
just-
people in our state, when I think about it, we're such. I mean, our SEC. There's nothing that's bigger than Alabama football and our sports here, and we probably all know or one person away from board of trustee members at the
Right.
collegiate level. And how does the board
Good
of
point.
trustees start to threaten, encourage these people in power, like the Nick Sabans of the world, that have the power to stand up and start speaking? And the coaches, I've read over and over again where coaches anonymous, the SEC swimming coach was one of USC swim coach was one of them, but she was afraid for her job. And then she said, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to, I can't not say something. And
Right.
it's more and more and more of those people in those roles I've seen where officials are quitting. They're walking out. They're not gonna do it. And it starts like that. And what y'all are doing, bringing this topic. I mean, I would love, for instance, for schools in our local area to start having debates about this. Let the kids actually have a discussion, not a fight.
Right.
Let's look at the facts and let's hear what they really have to say, and let's discuss what is the science. I
Right.
mean, that's a whole nother issue of how do you.
But the kids know it.
The kids
They
know.
know.
You're right.
They all
They
know. And the female athletes know.
Do
And-
they?
No, they know. Well, I was about to say they played dodgeball, they played football, they played basketball, they played all the things in recess and PE. They know.
But I feel like they might know, but they're willing to deny what
Well,
they know.
That may be
Yes.
happening.
Yeah.
I agree with
And
that.
Because they want to
so-
say the
Media.
right things.
Yeah,
Right.
social
Yeah.
media, it's just it's
Which I
so
think is
powerful.
worse than not knowing.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To deny the truth
Now I'm
is
confused.
worse than not knowing the truth.
Yeah.
Yes. To know it and then you just can't
Yeah.
say it because you're supposed to. So so someone comes along and says, well, what's the answer? I've got this guy, he says he's a girl, and he wants to compete as a girl. Some of these international things, I think it was the swimmers who said, well, maybe we need to have, I think it was the president of the swimming group said, well, maybe we need to have an open category,
Yeah. Now
which
that's a
I would
great
call the
point.
male.
Yeah.
Because
Just call that open.
we have said, or we have a
No
whole
problem.
division called the Paralympics.
Okay.
Okay, we would never ask a handicapped athlete to compete against a well-bodied athlete.
Yeah, correct.
So we create a whole division for them to compete against each other. Now, we don't monitor your disability and their disability. I mean, it's just, we're not splitting hairs. They're just allowed to compete in whatever event or sport that they want to. We have a whole Olympics for them.
Okay, but is that not just feeding into and enabling the madness?
Well,
That's
it
a
is,
really good
but
point,
it's saving
actually.
it's saving the sport at the same time, because we're in a culture that's demanding this. Now, yeah, we should be going back as the body of Christ and looking at the issue of the transgender issue itself as a mental illness and as a wounding, and be working in the churches young to start pushing back against this whole ideology. On the other end, if they're to save the integrity of sport, have your own division, but they're not doing that. Have any of y'all? I've not heard or read one thing where anyone has ever brought it up
Have not.
or offered it. And why is that? Why is that?
So it'd be like a trans,
Okay,
athlete.
Like for instance,
like you
at the
can
high
be a
school
girl
level,
that is a boy or
in
a boy
any,
that's
in
a,
any competition, you've got 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. Why?
Right.
Why? Why do they
Because
do
there's
that?
an
Size.
advantage to having a big school because you have more people to draw from, and that's unfair.
So
Right.
you're not asking a 1A to compete against a 7A.
Right.
Now, it does happen in some meets, and which I think is great because it gives them the opportunity to shine,
Right.
even if they are from a small school. but because of fairness, equality, rules, standards of measurement, that we separate in an effort for fairness. So if the transgenders, why that was not on the table day one, but no, because the agenda, y'all, it's the bigger
It wouldn't
picture.
push the issue.
It does not push the agenda,
That's
you know,
right.
and they wouldn't have anybody to compete against because there are so few of them.
Right.
And yet this tiny majority has taken the whole spotlight of sports and is negating this vast majority just by it's not even going to register how many there are, but they're trying to, you know, make a way and push the door open for all of this. And yet they're not even saying, well, we'll let y'all have yours and we're going to do ours.
Right. I still like the idea of just compete against the boys. That's the
Well, that's what it's going to end up anyway.
That's the open
because
category.
there's going to be
Anybody
boys
can
that
compete.
are girls and
Or have an open category.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Just the
But you know
male
what?
the male side is the open category. It's just like football, college football. There's nothing that says like the girl from Vanderbilt. Remember? Oh my
Yes.
gosh! For
Oh,
2 or 3
wow.
weeks, it was constant. She's a football player, and I'm like, what's she play? What's she play? She's the kicker. I'm like,
Yes. I felt the same way. Like, what?
did you
What?
really? Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, so it
Yeah.
wasn't just me.
Yeah,
I
it
wasn't just
wasn't
being
just you.
sexist.
No.
I was like, the kicker. I want to see linebacker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not
I
going
see
to do
running
it.
back.
You're
Right.
not going to do it.
Yeah.
But there's no rule. Hey, you want to do it? Do it. I'm not going to be your insurance company, but do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and we
Make that the
can't
open
forget there's
category.
this whole thing too called winning. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm too old.
Sissy.
she's all about some
Sissy
winning.
remembers the days of winning.
I'm just saying, you boil it down.
No, you're
I mean,
right.
Soros is not paying them to do it. They're doing it because they're winning.
Right.
They want to win, and they can't
Right.
win because they're no good as a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
They would cheat at Monopoly.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're.
Just
There's
to
a
win.
cheaters edition.
I'm not
Monopoly.
saying.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have
I bought it for my daughter. She likes to cheat in games.
I'm not saying that
It has
they are
handcuffs
going
and everything.
to
Sorry.
Sure, it's Monopoly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cheat.
just
You get
checking.
to. Anyway, we'll have to
Whatever.
play it.
that has to
Sorry.
play into it. It's my
It
point.
does.
No.
I'm not
You're
saying
right.
they're changing it just to do that, but it's like, hey, I mean,
It'd be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? If you said, oh, by the way, you have your own division now, what would happen? It'd be very interesting.
Well, and then there's this sweet little
they're not gonna-
13-year-old skateboarder that she's been she's not winning.
No.
I mean, that's where you just throw your hands in the air and you're saying, you just give up. And that's
and this Leah Thomas,
talk
like,
about
ooh,
fair.
yeah,
That's
I don't
not
have
fair.
to. I don't have to work as hard as Katie Ledecky. I'm just going to be a guy and beat all of her world records.
Right.
You know what? Really? I mean, y'all, you got to boil it down. Like the nuts and bolts are okay. So in my little slice, in my sport, in my event, we'll take that as a prime example. It was the women's high jump. The world record in the women's high jump is the second longest held world record of all track and field.
Okay.
1987, 32 or 3 years, right? Whatever. That's how long this record has held. That's a big
Long time.
deal.
Okay.
The state high school boys record here in Alabama is better than that. It's higher than that.
Really?
World record. That is the
Wow.
distance between. So I could train. Forget what I jumped.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking world record. So
And they're high school boys.
a high school boy could beat that from this state tomorrow or next year because he decides to be a girl, and he will topple
The world
one
record.
of the longest standing world records. So this is what we're talking about. And Leah Thomas too. She didn't just barely win.
Right.
Right.
38 seconds she
Right.
won.
Which is an
It's just-
eternity in swimming.
And everybody's watching going, seriously?
Right.
Yes.
And then he turns around. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah.
And then pretends to lose another race.
Yeah, that was
Like where he's like,
Yeah.
you might as well be going
Yeah,
backwards.
come on, man.
And,
Like, we see you.
And you're like,
It's
dang,
not-
you're dogging
yeah.
it. You're just sandbagging just to
So everybody will
pretend
stop
that.
talking.
Mhm.
It's bizarro world.
It
Every
is.
day I wake up, I'm like,
What next?
yeah. This
What
is
next?
when I would like to go back to like Bill Clinton, when that was the most scandalous thing.
Well,
that
Bill
ever
Clinton
happened
was
in
for
America.
women's sports.
Well,
I mean,
He was for women.
yes,
in general,
he was.
he was pro woman.
He was.
No,
but
that's good. Well, okay. So before we lose you, all these international groups, the NCAA, the International Swimming Group, all these, the Olympic committees, how did they get infested with people who believe these things? Because it's all
Good
still so
question.
new.
You know that book that we
you would
talked
think there'd be
about?
somebody going.
You would think.
No, what
No.
was it?
Which one?
Not the Great Reset. What's the book that?
Oh, from 1994.
No, the one that you found in your. Come on.
It's not the Great Reset. It's the New World Order.
The New World Order.
Well,
that's what it goes back to.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's what it goes back to. It's the same story. And I mean, I know people think we're cuckoo for going there, but if you want to take this fruit on this tree and you want to roll it all the way back to you're going to find Bill Clinton. I mean, it is the plan and the
We just
agenda.
didn't know it then.
That's
We
right.
didn't know
We
it.
didn't know it.
It's
Life was
actually
good.
Yeah.
I heard a talk. It's actually we're in these stages of the art of war. I mean, it is a systematic, planned takeover and takedown, and this whole movement, this LGBTQ movement, is a part of that. They're using that to erode the moral base of our culture. I mean, we started, obviously, we can see when you took Bible out of schools, you saw, it is the same idea, but we're so far down the road, we're into the normalization stage.
Right.
It's
And we
just
didn't know they were
normal.
setting it up, and
We didn't
we
know
didn't.
anything.
And this is the
So-
weeding out time too. All right, okay, you're raising up your mouth. You don't like it. You need to
Right.
be canceled. And you need to be canceled. And you need to be.
And they're
so
doing
they're
it,
pushing
yes.
everybody away and down. And
Who thought it could happen this
I
fast?
told you we're all going to re-education camp. We're going to be roommates. Well, you'll be in the
Well,
boys.
we'll have
unless
fun.
you decide to be a girl.
I'm gonna be a girl. So I can
Yeah.
be with y'all.
We'll
Hang out with
raise.
Well, what's going to
some
happen?
It'll be
holy
way more
heck.
fun on our side. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that.
Well, what's
Absolutely.
going to happen where now we've got the non-binaries where they're neither, but
I
they
don't
want to
even
compete.
understand
So
all
who
that.
are they
I
mean, and I bet
saw
that people-
biromantic, non-binary or something today, and I'm like,
What?
Who makes these words up? I don't even
People
know what
with
that
way too
means.
much time on their hands.
What's biromantic?
I don't know.
Yeah, we are-
Bisexual romantic relationships.
And we are
they're-
TERFs, y'all.
more than
But
that.
they were asexual. That was it.
Yes.
Biromantic, asexual.
We are trans exclusionary radical feminists. TERFs.
Y'all are.
That's what
Oh, that's what a TERF is.
Awesome. Okay. Finally,
What are the
get to
guys?
be a
What do
TERF.
I get to be? Because y'all are.
Oh, I wrote
Maybe
that.
he
one
is
too.
too. He's that too, right? I mean, if you have to spend this much time making up words like this,
Well, you
you
spend
need
enough
a
time
life.
at this table with girls. We'll put you in that
Come on.
category.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
I've been called a lot of bad names through the years, so I didn't know
You're a
TERF was
turd.
one
Well,
of
now
those.
we're
Such a
TERFs.
It's usually turd.
You're
I
such a
love
turf.
it. Oh my goodness.
Well, golly, that has been enlightening. But there are people starting to speak up.
There
so,
are.
There's a glimmer of hope.
This is the
That's what we
perfect
gotta
person
do.
to ask. All right, there are certain women's sports that I think are fantastic. They're better than guy sports to watch.
suddenly
I've said
nervous.
this before.
I'm so nervous.
It's just
What
gonna
are you
be
gonna
good.
do?
I've got an answer.
I don't understand why the mainstream media, everyone else, doesn't support college softball. Great sport. Personally,
Fun.
I think it's better than baseball. I would much rather
I
see
love
it.
softball.
Women's
Yes. And
college softball.
Why do they not support it?
Why is it not? 'Cause I'm gonna get to the rest of it. Women's volleyball, I think, is great in person. I'm a huge fan. Women's basketball, not so much. Guys basketball is just really better. But ESPN, the SEC, everyone, they just gobs and gobs and gobs of money on sports that people don't really watch or think are great. But then you have women's softball or women's volleyball. When people start watching them and love those sports, they don't get the attention that women's basketball does. Why do we do things like that? Why do we not support the sports that people would actually watch?
Well, it's like why do they not make more movies that people actually want to see, like Top Gun? I mean, it made all these records. It was a good movie,
Right.
It didn't have all the agendas and the filth and the.
Right.
But
Why don't
Lightyear.
they
That's
keep?
a really good point.
Oh yeah.
I'm kidding.
Oh, here we go.
I'm kidding.
So
Yeah.
it's an.
That was a joke. I didn't
Not
get
a
it.
So
good
it's
movie.
back to what you and I were saying before the start of the show. Everybody always says follow the money, but we're beyond the follow the money. Now it's
Agenda.
This the agenda.
Follow the agenda
no matter
because
what.
Disney's losing
Yeah.
billions and they evidently don't care
Right.
Yeah. No.
because
don't
they
seem
are
to.
supporting their agenda and that's what's the whole. That's so interesting because you're exactly right. It was always it's power and agenda. Money has created the power and the agenda, but the power and the agenda of this progressive.
Wait, I've got an answer. It's because they can't empower and build up females or women at the same time while they're trying to tear us down and make us birthing people
Right.
or and equalize us, because that is the agenda, to make everybody normal. There's no Christian. There's no, everybody is just this
blob.
blob.
It's a blob that all talking head.
There's nobody's exceptional. Nobody's anything. So you can't, on one hand, build up women and give them the spotlight while you're trying to totally just take down even men. But right now the agenda is the women, I feel like.
Yes.
Okay, that was
That was good.
thought.
That was really good.
Sorry.
That was a very deep thought.
I interrupted Sissy's better thought.
No, you didn't. I was just, our administration is just, it's their end game. And it's a great question to discuss. And it is, it is a great question to discuss. When what is the end game behind why? Like you say, and get people talking, get people thinking. And how far are you willing to look? But the thing is, we've got to stop and remember there's always an answer. There's always hope, because our God is not asleep at the wheel. He knows what's going on. And this is a part of his work to bring all this stuff up to the surface so that we can see it as the body of Christ, as the ecclesia, and we can start going in and taking over and taking back and partnering with him to save our countries, save our towns, save our schools. It's all unto him and unto that. Not because if I start looking at this too much, I'm going to despair, because it's just too much and it's too overwhelming. But it's like the Red Sea moment. I mean, we're up against a wall. This are the enemy, and we've got to look up. We've got to make him great. We've got to focus on who he can be in us, in our spheres, in our churches, and look to him for the revival that he's bringing into the church by waking us up to who we are in him and what we have to bring into the earth, and instead of just running to the hills and storing up our food out of fear. I mean, it's easy to want to do that, but I think that goes back to what can we do? Each person on their face before the Lord, asking the Lord, here's what you've given me. Here are my talents. Here's my little.
Here's where I am.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, or I'm a CEO. What have you called me to do to impact the culture you've put me in?
Right.
And that one after another, and he becomes. We make him manifest in the arenas that he's put us in, and we're going to start seeing us regain and take this country back. Bit by bit, and talking about it is first, but remembering that us against the world, but if it's the Lord in us, we're a majority.
We're a majority.
Just,
You're 100.
just-
I'm with your plan. I like your plan.
And-
I'm a little concerned though that God's not going. Nebuchadnezzar, you guys,
Yeah, I would like to see some
you're
more.
my guys. Come on in. That's what I'm a little worried about. That he's already called the other team in to do some spanking.
Yes,
But,
there you go.
but God is still sovereign.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. We win at the end, but
So-
we need to fight the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
That's right.
called us to fight, and that's what y'all are doing, having this show and making him. We become like what we focus on. So the more we can focus on who he is in the midst of all this, focus on worship, focus on making him known in the earth. I believe he will give us creativity. He will give us ideas. He will give us inspirations, whether it's the right thing to say or open doors for us. I mean, just like being here and talking, that he will give us what he's called us to do. And when we each do what he's called us to do, I think we're going to see the whole tide turn back, because that's just the kind of God that he is. He restores everything.
Amen. A
what
woman,
it is.
whatever they said in Congress that time.
It did.
That was good. That was good.
Just making sure.
That was a sweet turnaround
All right.
victory.
Who's closing us out?
You are.
I am.
You
Yes,
are.
of course you are.
Clearly,
This has been Alabama Unfiltered with Sissy Boone. It's been a great program. We appreciate you watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and make sure you tell other people about this program. Sign up for the daily
Detail.
Newsletter.
detail newsletter.
And the
1819.
daily newsletter. Both.
And both of them. It's
You
two
could do
different
both.
things.
Yes,
do
two
both of
different
those
things.
at 1819news.com. We appreciate you watching the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Wait. We have an email address that people can reach out to us now.
Yes.
I think this is kind of cool.
I don't plan on ever
If
checking
you
it,
have
but y'all will.
something, questions for us, for Sissy, for any of the guests that we've had on, you can reach us at unfiltered at 1819news.com. Unfiltered.
fancy.
Yeah, we feel super official now. So somebody email us just so
Just say-
we have
Yeah, just say
something
Just say
hi
hello.
or like an exclamation point or
But
something.
wait, do we have the password?
We don't know.
No, they're not going to let us.
They'll have
we'll
to tell
find
us.
it, but email us.
Yeah, email.
We'd love
Send
to
us
hear
an
from
email.
you.
Thank you in advance.
and where are you going?
Okay, now you can finish.
See y'all.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.